For the past 3 days, there's been a tornado warning. I don't believe what's outside resembles a tornado. I reside in the Midwest, but that's not pertinent. My area is prone to weather warnings, especially tornadoes, mostly occurring between April and June. However, it's not uncommon to have them later in the year. What's unusual is their duration. This warning has persisted for 3 days, starting 3 days ago. I had just returned home from another mundane day at work. Settling on the couch with a beer, a microwave dinner, and my dog, Sam, a small rescue dog of unspecified breed, I intended to indulge in some late-night TV after a few drinks, as per my weekday routine. However, my plans were abruptly halted by both my TV and phone blaring a tornado warning. Glancing outside, the weather seemed stormy but hardly indicative of tornado conditions. I reluctantly left my spot on the couch, taking my dog and dinner with me down to the cellar beneath my house. It was only after I closed the door that I realized I had forgotten my beer. My cellar, much like my house, isn't particularly glamorous, as you might imagine. Descending the steps, my hand traced the wall until it found the light switch. Aware that the power might not last long, I set about starting up the generator. While in the cellar, I spoke to Sam to reassure her, saying, "It's just a precaution, girl. We'll be back upstairs soon." After ensuring I had enough food and water, I settled into my old chair in the cellar. Switching on the radio, I anticipated at least 30 minutes of clear signal before the storm disrupted it. As I started eating my dinner, the radio suddenly crackled to life. Emergency weather alerts broadcast for Sumner County, Kansas. It blared. Residents are advised to stay indoors or in a storm cellar and to shut all windows. Lock all doors, barricade cellar entrances, and do not answer any call for help or request for entry until an official signal. Stay safe and good luck. "Wait," what I exclaimed, nearly choking on my food. Quickly, I leaned forward and lowered the radio's volume, hoping to catch the warning again. Residents are also advised to lock all doors, barricades, other entrances, and to not answer any call for help or request for entry until an official state law. Stay safe and good. The radio finally fell silent, just as the rain started pounding on the roof above. But the warning repeated in my mind: lock all doors, barricade cellar entrances, and do not answer any call for help or request for entry until an official signal. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't my first encounter with severe storms or tornadoes. I've spent countless hours holed up in this cellar, with rain, lightning, tornadoes, and hail raging above me. But never before had I been instructed to lock my doors or ignore calls for help or entry. That was weird, I thought to myself. Initially, I brushed it off as the possibility of looters, sneaking into homes of people and hiding and robbing them. It's happened before, but never during a storm, and never to such an extent that the county would issue a warning about it. Besides, looters don't typically try to alert homeowners to their presence. Anyway, I tried my best to push the thought aside and eventually drifted off to sleep much earlier than usual, likely due to boredom with nothing else to do but listen to the rain pounding above. Around 3 a.m., I was awakened by Sam barking and growling at the other door, which was unusual. She never barked during storms, only at people at the door or other dogs. I climbed the stairs and pressed my ear against the cellar door. All I could hear was the heavy rain and occasional thunder. It was strange the tornado should have passed by now, yet we still hadn't received an official all clear. It's not like I would have slept through it. I'm a light sleeper, and I made sure the radio volume was turned up high. Just as I was about to return to my chair, I heard the creak of my front door opening. "Shit," I muttered to myself, realizing I had forgotten to lock it. Sam's barking grew louder, despite my attempts to shush her. The house fell silent for a moment, during which I seized the opportunity to wedge a wooden board between the door handles, making it nearly impossible to open from the outside. But then, I heard footsteps. They were light, but definitely there, I thought, following the sound with my ears as it made its way around my house. It was hard to pinpoint their location, but I distinctly heard them in my living room, on the carpet, then going up the stairs and into my bedroom. Panic surged within me, and my eyes darted around the room, feeling a pit in my stomach and a wave of fear-induced nausea. Realizing I had left my rifle upstairs, down here in the cellar, the best weapon I had were the couple of inch-long steak knives I had brought down before switching off the cellar light, which I had stupidly left on earlier. Peeking between the two southern doors that opened into my house, I saw Sam had quieted down but was still growling. My gaze scanned the limited field of view, taking in my couch, stairs, and the closed door to my bathroom. Not much to see. Then, the footsteps stopped. Was this what the radio had warned about? I ran through scenarios in my head, looters. Someone seeking shelter, a wild animal, but none seemed to make sense. And then, the knock came. At first, I wasn't sure if I had heard it properly, but it quickly escalated from a quiet tapping to a banging crescendo. It sounded like thousands of fists descending onto my southern door, thrashing and pounding against it. Whoever or whatever was banging, it seemed relentless. I knew I couldn't let it in. This must have been what the radio had warned about instinctively. I jumped back and nearly fell backward on the stairs leading into my cellar. Surprise me, I thought, composing myself, and yelled at whatever was outside, "Get out of my house. I'm armed." My voice trembled slightly, undermining the conviction of my words, as the banging on my door intensified. Did I scare it away, I wondered to myself? It was quiet for a few moments, but the uneasy silence shattered when it spoke. "You need to let me enter. It's really dangerous out here. I don't know how long I can last," the voice said. It sounded like my brother's, whom I hadn't seen in years since he moved to the West Coast. Yet, there was no way he could be here. He didn't even know where I lived. Every fiber of my being knew that whoever spoke was definitely not my brother, but something else. Still, I found myself replying, "Mark, yeah, it's been a while. Let me enter. I need to see you." The voice trailed off, deeper, almost raspy, nothing like my brother's at all. I knew I couldn't respond. "Look, I'm begging you. For the love of God, let me in. It's dangerous out here. The storm is strong," it pleaded, but I refused to give it the satisfaction of a reply, which only seemed to anger it more. "Let me in," it screamed out of frustration, a sickening, high-pitched wail that filled the air and made me want to throw up. After that, it started banging on the door again. It was quiet for a couple of hours after that. The storm continued, seemingly without a tornado. However, I was startled to hear my radio crackle to life. "Emergency weather alert canceled," it announced. "Residents are advised to leave their shelters to secure properties. That is all." I let out a sigh of relief, but it was short-lived. The broadcast seemed off. Usually, at the end of a storm, there would be a damage report and locations where you could go to receive aid, maybe even a bed for the night. Plus, I could still hear the rain and thunder above me. There was no way a signal could get through. It must have somehow hijacked my radio signal. Despite not receiving any response to the message, my radio continued to repeat the same line every few minutes, with perfect sound quality. It was enough to make me want to unplug the thing altogether, if I wasn't afraid of missing the actual end signal. Since then, it's been rather quiet. 3 days have passed without the storm or my radio subsiding. That thing, whatever it is still out there, occasionally banging on my door to remind me. I'm at my wit's end. If it weren't for Sam, I think I would have gone insane by now. That's all for the moment. I'll update if I can. Until then, wish me luck. It's the eve of the 4th day now, and the storm isn't showing any signs of stopping. Now, from what I can hear anyway, reading through my last update, a lot of you gave me some really good advice that I ended up putting into action. I managed to get a few little chunks of sleep over the past few days. It's hard. That thing in my house occasionally bangs on the door and calls for me to open it, and my darn radio keeps blasting the same message. And when I haven't been asleep, I've been digging out the back of the cellar. You see, when I first bought this house, the previous owner told me that there was a cellar door that opened to the outside. But it was buried under a pile of rubble after the walls on either side of the cellar collapsed. It was strange, but I think it might be my only hope. In my last post, someone recommended that I should try to call one of my neighbors. I have a landline stored down here, so I tried giving them a ring. For the first few calls, I got no response. I assumed they had either evacuated or were holed up inside their house. I was ready to give up when that thing outside my door spoke again. "You're not going to get through to them. I can help. Let me in. I will help you. I have food and water, you know." Thankfully, food and water weren't an issue. I even had a couple of sacks of dog food for Sam so she wouldn't go hungry. Sam actually seemed to enjoy the situation when she wasn't barking at the thing outside the door. Also, someone on my last post made a comment about using the dog as a distraction while I made a run for it. While the idea is definitely valid, I couldn't do that to Sam. She's been with me through thick and thin. Even though my cellar is a bit decrepit, I still kept it constantly stocked with supplies for these exact situations. Well, maybe not this exact situation, but one where I'd have to stay down here for a few days. Anyway, I tried one last time to call my neighbors. This time, thank God, they actually picked up. "Hello, Mr. Robinson," I said, trying not to sound too shaky on the phone. "Yes? Do you need help?" Alec responded. I paused. I couldn't tell them about what was outside my door. They wouldn't believe me and would probably just tell me to screw off. Plus, Mr. Robinson would risk his life by initiating contact with that thing. "Yeah, I'm in a bit of a spot. I'm running out of food and water, and my generator's broken. Would it be all right if I stayed with you guys until the storm's out?" Yes, I think that would be okay," he replied. "And we still have plenty of supplies. So come on over, just knock on the door around the back of the house, and we'll let you in." "All right, Mr. Robinson said before hanging up. I prayed to God that I had just spoken to Mr. Robinson, and now, whatever the hell was out there, I had a hunch that I was safe going over there, though. Because if this thing had picked up the phone, I think it would have been much more keen for me to come in, despite its incredible ability to change its voice. Subtlety is something that it lacked. In the time between these posts, I have also done some research on what it is. Someone commented on my last post saying that it could have been a Wendigo. I'll be honest, I've never heard of it outside of a couple of horror stories. It says on the Wikipedia page that it's a malevolent creature that has some human characteristics, but it also resides in the forest regions of the East Coast and Great Lakes, so I don't know if it would make its way all the way down to Kansas. Although I don't quite know what it is, I know that I don't want to come into contact with it. Before I made a mad dash into my neighbor's yard, I had to figure out how to distract the thing. Luckily, I still knew that he was right about me. Due to its constant banging on the door, I knew where it was though, and that was the main thing. For the rest of the fourth day, I used a small sand shovel to dig out the back of the cellar. Even though the weather outside was stormy, the digging left me sweaty and thirsty in the sweltering Kansas heat. The work was hard, especially with my limited equipment. Most of what I dug up was just dirt. However, there were bits of rubble from what I assumed were parts of the walls that had caved in. Despite the mud from the leaking ceiling and my shovel breaking, I eventually managed to dig out the backside of the cellar by about 6 p.m. Now I just had to figure out a way to distract the creature and get Sam and me into my neighbor's cellar without being found by the thing. I spent the next half an hour setting up and gathering the materials for my plan, I thought. Then gave Sam her dinner and made myself some instant noodles, rushing to get out there and execute my plan as quietly as I could. I replaced the border between the southern doors with old bits of wood that I had dug up, weak in the center. I attached a bit of survival rope to it, tying a tiny loop around the weakest point. Then, I packed my backpack with food, water, and batteries, placing Sam on top. Luckily, she was quite small. With the backpack on one shoulder and my knife in hand, I made my way over to the recently excavated outside door, prepared to make a run for it. "All right, come on in," I screamed at the top of my lungs, swinging the outside cellar doors open. Without looking back, I sprinted across the dry grass in my yard, leaping over the poorly maintained hedge into my neighbor's yard. Banging on their cellar door and screaming for them to let me in, Mr. and Mrs. Robinson opened the doors and ushered me in. Come in, come in. "You're already drenched standing out there, Mrs. Robinson said as I jumped down into the cellar. I was shocked to find that there was no light. It was almost pitch black inside. "Oh, Alec, you finally arrived, Mr. Robinson said. "Always glad to have visitors. Sorry, it's a bit dark. Our generator died about an hour ago." "It's fine, really." "Better than being out of food," I replied, relieved to be away from that thing. "Yeah, I bet. Anyway, when was the last time you saw your brother Mark?" "What do you mean?" "Oh, he popped in a moment ago. He was looking, wondering where you were, Mr. Robinson said, making my adrenaline surge again after a brief calm period. "Is he here?" "Hello, Alec.